trade talks terminated, President Trump has announced that he is ending negotiations with Canada, all over an advertisement put out by Ontario's government. The ad uses the words from President Ronald Reagan in a 1987 address, there's video right there, where he criticizes tariffs. The Reagan Foundation, though, yesterday put out a statement saying that the ad misrepresents the late president's speech. What's not clear is how they believe that Reagan really was misrepresented. Here's part.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs.
Canada has yet to respond to the president now cutting off trade talks. All of this comes against an important backdrop. Just hours before, really, President Trump is set to head to Asia for what could be the most important trade talks of all. Not with Canada, but with the world's second largest economy, China. The president still, at least as right now, expected to sit down and talk trade with Chinese President Xi Jinping next week. CNN's Elena Trine is at the White House. But first, Elena, Canada, what's happening?
Yeah, look, the president, Kate, is threatening once again to upend the crucial economic relationship between the United States and its second biggest trading partner. Now, you said this, but overnight the president had said essentially that he is canceling trade talks with Canada over that ad that you played. And what's unclear is if the president had actually contacted or spoke with the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, or anyone in the Canadian government. I will say we've reached out to them. We're waiting to hear what the Canadians have in response to this message from the president. But essentially in this post on Truth Social, he said that he believes that the ad was fake, that the message was fake, that the Canadians government was playing with this ad. And he also argued that it was designed to interfere in the U.S. Supreme Court. Essentially, the Supreme Court is currently considering a legal challenge to many of the president's tariffs. I'm going to read for you some of this post. He said, quote, "They only did this to interfere with the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court and other courts. Tariffs are very important to the national security and economy of the USA. Based on their egregious behavior, all trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated." Now, the ad, you mentioned some of this, Kate, but while the ad was edited, it did lack context. It is unclear what was misrepresented, because if you look at that speech, it was a radio address that Reagan gave in 1987. He gave it from Camp David. It is very much a full-throated defense of fair and open trade. And what the timing of this as well, I think it's important to point out the context of this speech from Reagan. It was when he was placing higher tariffs on various Japanese products to try and stem the damage of imports of cheap Japanese semiconductors, the damage that was doing to the U.S. economy. But look, to take a step back and just re-examine the relationship between the United States and Canada, it had always been rocky. The president had previously threatened very high tariffs. He also has been kind of joking about having Canada become the 51st state. Talks were very bad when the former Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, was still in office. After he resigned and Carney came into office, it did appear like things were becoming warmer. Relationships between the United States and Canada were getting better. Unclear now, though, where this leaves that.
Unclear is definitely how we are starting this Friday. Elena, thank you so much. Much more to come from the White House this morning.
The president posted on Truth Social that he is canceling trade talks with Canada over an ad featuring a speech from President Reagan. Listen.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer.
So he called their behavior egregious, Sochi, and the airing of this ad. What gives?
I mean, the ad's true. I mean, it talks about how tariffs are going to impact families. Listen, I don't think that Donald Trump is So, I mean, you just cannot predict what he's going to do on tariffs, and it impacts the economy. And there has been so much whiplash when it comes to these tariffs that it is very clear that he never had a plan and currently does not have a plan on how to land the plane on when it comes to his tariff strategy.
But it's the use of Reagan, I think it's important to note, because I know Democrats have made a very big deal of comparing and contrasting who has been looked at as the symbol of republicanism, Ronald Reagan, to Trump. Maybe that ruffled his feathers.
Well, I think what also ruffled his feathers is he understands that the Supreme Court will be hearing oral arguments on this. And I think that the administration is very nervous about what the Supreme Court is going to do. And the next few weeks are critical for the administration and Donald Trump's tariff policy. So when he sees an ad like this coming from Canada, as has been reported, I think that is what ruffled his feathers, because he understands that there isn't wide support for his tariffs. And heading into the Supreme Court arguments, that could be a problem. Good point.
But you know what? It's one thing, Sochi, for Democrats to say, look, we disagree with the president's position on tariffs. As you just stated, the president can't land the plane. If you believe that as a Democrat, you're an American, you have every right to make that argument to the American people here and via ads as an American. I am very, very skeptical and cautious about having a foreign government, whether friend or foe, spending almost $100 million to essentially interfere with American domestic politics. I think if this was China or Russia, we would be appalled by it.
I do want you to finish that point. But for the reasons you've just stated, the American voter can be separate and apart from what another nation is saying about an advertisement. So does the fact that there is independence undercut your argument that, so what if they're saying it?
I don't think it does at all, Laura, because again, if you open this Pandora's box as it pertains to tariffs, what's to then stop a foreign entity from saying, you know what, we don't like this particular political leader, so maybe we should spend $100 million to say we prefer a Democratic president over a Republican president because their tariffs will be more beneficial to our economy, our bottom line. I don't want to open that door. And so I'm in agreement with the president. You have overstepped your boundaries. You can absolutely negotiate with the White House and the officials that the president has appointed to negotiate tariffs. What's in the benefit of the U.S., what's beneficial to Canada. I'm in agreement. That's the normal, regular process, regular order. But to spend $100 million interfering, I'm not in support of that at all.
Yeah, he used the word interfering. They have an advertisement. I recognize your argument about Russia and China and the history we've seen recently. But is this where we should be politically, that trade negotiations are off because of an ad?
Well, I was just going to mention that. And I think I agree. I don't think it should be. I think that just like Donald Trump was shocked about this ad and it ruffled some feathers to him, I do think that Canada was also shocked when he imposed those tariffs. I think that the fact that our allies, we are going to war, a trade war with our allies, has shocked the world. And so I think that what Canada's doing is they're playing hardball here with Donald Trump, similar to what he has been doing, because this is not the way that the U.S. should be negotiating with our allies.
I think if the Canadians wanted to play hardball, then they would say, we're going to increase tariffs on whatever goods that are coming into the United States, or we're going to find other allied nations to partner with, to undercut U.S. dollar valuation, et cetera. You don't spend $70 million in a persuasive effort in a way to push the American people against the current administration. That's not the role of the Canadian government. And by the way, I would say we shouldn't interfere in their politics either by running ads. We should go through a process of having our political leaders negotiate and then figure out what the resolution is, Laura. But I think Americans, Republicans and Democrats, should be highly skeptical of this. And I consider the Canadians to be a friendly nation. They're an ally.
Well, it's curious to think about how this will all unfold with democracies wanting their voters to have all the information. We'll see.